Oh, Lucy, is it?
Yeah.
Let me step in 2 seconds.
Yes.
Death followed Lucy Letby around.
The UK's worst child killer.
Did she or didn't she? Troubling questions
This was so obvious.
about a child serial killer's conviction.
I think she will be exonerated.
Let me step in 2 seconds.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Lucy Letby was found guilty of murdering 7 babies and attempting to murder 7 more after 2 trials.
Little did those working alongside her know that there was a murderer in their midst.
2 applications to appeal have since been refused.
Letby was convicted back in 2023. I was sure she was a baby killer. I now believe that she's an innocent woman. My name's Oliver Harvey. I'm chief feature writer for the Sun newspaper, and I've worked in Fleet Street for nearly 30 years.
35-year-old killer nurse Lucy Letby is currently serving 15 life sentences. Lucy Letby is Britain's 3rd worst female serial killer. She was convicted in August 2023 of murdering 7 infants and then 7 attempts to murder 7 additional infants in her care. Now, 2 years later, efforts are in full swing to cast reasonable doubt on the findings of the original trial.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear. Thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic and independent voice in true crime. If you've been watching the Koberger case, you might want to pay attention to what's happening here as a possible sign for what could happen in the future of the Koberger case. I mean, 1 minute a suspect is safely convicted and sentenced, put behind bars and key thrown away. The next, the justice system that did so is on trial. So far, Lucy has lost 2 attempts to appeal her conviction, but it seems steps are afoot to prepare a 3rd by trying to find what may qualify as new evidence. In this analysis, we're going to look at 5 new issues in the Letby case. But before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Later today, we'll be continuing the timeline review of the Chris Watts case, so look out for that. If you're finding this analysis worthwhile, please do hit the thanks button and let's get started. Alright, 5 new issues in the Letby case. Number 1, how dodgy was Lucy's married doctor boyfriend? Both Letby and the doctor have denied having a romantic relationship, but one way for the defense to potentially deal with the case against Lucy is to deflect attention away from her and onto him. According to The Sun, Lucy Letby's doctor boyfriend is being investigated over alleged information he gave her about a baby she tried to murder. And I think this occurred during a period when she was under suspicion. A probe has now been launched into a married consultant 20 years older than Letby, who can't be named for legal reasons. He is accused of sharing information with a nurse, and infant Letby was convicted of attempting to murder. The consultant is also being investigated over his requests, this is important, over his requests to have Letby visit him so she could watch him perform surgeries on infants up until June 2017. Remember, the facts of this case deal with really the period around 2016. My opinion has always been that in order to get the married doctor's attention, whom she was, I believe, obsessed with, Lucy created emergencies late at night which basically engineered the 2 of them being together and at close quarters. If this seems far-fetched, ask yourself if Lucy had any other romantic interests in her life, any other boyfriends. Can you name one? Anyway, back to The Sun. This doctor organized the trips after Letby had already been moved to an administrative role in July 2016 over concerns with the volume of baby deaths on her ward. These really took place over the course of about a year, from around about mid-2015 to 2016. This doctor had been on shift when the nurse murdered 2 triplets and allegedly tried to harm a 3rd one in June 2016. In September 2016, this doctor sent Lucy a message in which he called her the best neonatal nurse he'd ever worked with. The pair were found to have exchanged more than 1,300 messages while working as colleagues at Countess of Chester Hospital, and the prosecution labelled him Letby's boyfriend. Jurors at the trial were also told they had gone on London day trips and went out for dinners. Now, I don't know, I think you can take all of that away and just look at the 1,300 text messages. If you had to average those out almost over 5 years, it would be around one text message every single day over about 5 years, a little bit less than that. But I mean, we are dealing with a married individual, and it's not as though Lucy literally worked side by side with this doctor all the time. That is a lot of interaction. Number 2, did Lucy really confess? Post-its under scrutiny. Now, police found notes in the killer's home with his name on them, with the doctor's name on them. One read, "I loved you and I think you knew that. I wanted you to stand by me, but you didn't." According to the Independent, notes such as "I am evil, I did this" were scrawled on a scrappy notepad found in her house. It also read, "I killed them on purpose because I'm not good enough to care for them and I am a horrible, evil person." I mean, when did you randomly, impulsively confess to murder? At home, when you were under no duress and no coercion. Have you ever done that? According to the Daily Mail, quote, "But Lucy's bestie, Dawn, undermines claims that scribbled notes found in Letby's house were any sort of confession. She reveals that at sixth form college together, both trained in peer support counseling and learned of a common method to deal with anxieties, to write down your worst fears and feelings." Well, how many people's worst fears and feelings have to do with killing other people? And one does have to wonder, Dawn, have you ever written notes saying that you're evil, that you killed someone, in the context of a lot of people dying in your care? Anyway, let's go back to the Daily Mail. "If you're feeling overwhelmed, you write down everything that's going through your mind," Dawn said. And this is what Letby did when undergoing counseling arranged for her by the hospital. Dawn recalled her reaction when she learned that her friend was being accused. "I watched it all unfold, and every step of the way I couldn't believe it." Well, a lot of what is going on now is about people simply refusing to believe that someone they knew was capable of such evil. British newspapers, come to think of it, seem to be very good at riding the wave of guilt, then riding it again via the counter-narrative of alleged innocence. We saw this in the McCann case, and it's kind of a way the media seem to double their money on a particular case. But is it good for trust in the judiciary, in policing, in investigations? And I guess, is it true to begin with? According to the Daily Mail, in her darkest moments, Dawn wondered if Letby had perhaps inadvertently caused harm because she was newly qualified and under heavy pressure, but that was the limit of what she could believe. Number 3, was insulin poisoning really a murder weapon? Now, the real difficulty, the real challenge in prosecuting this case has always been hard evidence, because many of the methods Lucy used, such as injecting an air bubble, could be natural or inadvertent. According to the Times, the prosecution said the results of blood tests for the 2 babies, which showed they had very high insulin levels and low levels of a molecule called C-peptide, which is created in the body as insulin is produced, are proof that insulin had been given externally in an attempt to poison them. However, Shannon and Chase, who have been given access to the baby's medical notes and asked to look again at the insulin test results, have, surprise, surprise, come to a different conclusion. According to the pair, many newborn babies, also known as neonates, are born with a specific type of antibodies in their blood. They say they can show that insulin produced naturally by the babies can bind to these antibodies and can stay longer in the bloodstream, giving a high reading, while C-peptide continues to be cleared, thus giving a low reading. Well, you can see what's happening. The defense are trying to manufacture a counter-narrative to each prosecution hurdle. Number 4, how strenuous is the nurse's defense? Well, did you know that just one witness was called in Letby's defense at trial? She's on trial, and now's her chance to state her case. And so instead of calling a single colleague, she called a hospital plumber to testify to sewage issues and therefore possible hygiene problems on the ward. Now you can see no one else is implicated here, just basically a vague concept of hygienic or unhygienic conditions. According to the Times, the prosecution's main witness, Dr. Dewey Evans, has since changed his mind on how one of the babies Letby was convicted of killing died. That's one of them, one of 7. And we are invited to consider how all of this should be weighed against Letby's apparent lack of motive, and more implicitly, the extreme rarity of young female serial killers of children. No motive? If you can't think of a motive, does that mean there isn't one? And if the motive against each child isn't direct, you can imagine killing a child of that age, the child has done nothing to the killer, right? So there's no animus there. I mean, these very small babies don't even cry, really. They don't really even make a sound most of the time. So if the motive against each child isn't direct, if it is using their distress to lure a dashing doctor to her side, then it's an indirect motive. An indirect motive is still a motive. You may have noticed lately in true crime that everything is a conspiracy. For every crime, there's a counter-narrative involving unseen pedophile rings, shadowy drug cartels, or corrupt cops, and usually the counter-narrative is a lot more exciting. It's hard when everyone is seeing things in the woods for reality itself to emerge unscathed. What we're experiencing right now is the gaslighting of justice itself, and there are so many people participating in that. And guess what? The gaslighters are winning. The gaslighters are getting better. Number 5, justice on trial. Is the Koberger case likely to follow the trajectory of the Letby case? Well, unlike Koberger, Lucy didn't take a plea deal, and she has her whole life ahead of her to beat back the charges. Remember, it took Amanda Knox just 4 years to successfully win an appeal and exonerate herself. Lucy, in a sense, is only halfway to that milestone. According to The Guardian, which seemed to love ITV's counter-narrative documentary, the documentary makers do not dwell on why Letby's team put forward such a minimal defense. And then she writes, though I'm sure further and broader analyses will come in time, probably encompassing such factors as the trust we place in ministering angels and the fury we feel when it appears to have been betrayed. The reason Lucy's defense put up such a minimal defense when she was on trial is because she had such a minimal defense. And if she had a strong defense, where were her friends? Where were her defenders? Where were people like Dawn when she needed them? Where was her doctor friend? Well, I'm not going to take it further than that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.